After 7 years, the millionaire sees his ex at a wedding, and the little girl beside her shocks him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into the story. 7 years ago, Jason Calloway's life was nothing short of perfect. At 32 years old, he was the CEO of Callaway Enterprises, a multi-million-dollar tech company that he had built from the ground up. Jason had it all: wealth, power, a luxurious penthouse in Manhattan, and a beautiful fiancée, Elena, who was the love of his life. The two of them had everything they could ever want, or so Jason thought. One night, after a heated argument, Elena left him, without warning or explanation. She took everything with her: her things, her love, and the future they had planned together. Jason never truly understood why. The heartbreak was unbearable, and after that, he shut down emotionally. His company became his world, and relationships were nothing more than a distraction. Elena's absence left a void he didn't know how to fill. Years passed, and Jason's success continued to grow, but his personal life remained stagnant. He threw himself into work, focusing on expanding his company and maintaining the image of the perfect billionaire businessman. But there was always something missing. Then, out of nowhere, an invitation arrived. It was a wedding invitation, and it took Jason a moment to process the name on the card. It was from Elena. She was getting married. The news hit him like a ton of bricks. After all this time, he still hadn't heard from her, and now she was moving on with her life. But there was more to the invitation than just the announcement of her wedding. Elena had specifically requested that Jason attend. Confused and unsure of what to expect, Jason reluctantly accepted. He was intrigued, but he also dreaded the idea of seeing Elena again, especially at such an important event. The wedding was held at a beautiful venue, one of the most expensive places in the city. Jason arrived, feeling out of place in his tailored black tuxedo. He entered the grand ballroom, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses filling the air. The atmosphere was light, but his heart felt heavy. As he walked through the room, his eyes scanned the crowd, but he didn't see Elena right away. That's when he spotted her, standing by the bar, talking to a group of friends. She looked different. She had always been stunning, but now there was something about her that made her glow even more. She was laughing, her face radiant, but there was a calmness to her that Jason hadn't seen before. He didn't have time to dwell on it because suddenly, Elena turned toward him. Their eyes met, and time seemed to freeze for a moment. Elena's smile faltered slightly when she saw him, but she quickly recovered. She walked toward him, her presence as graceful as ever. Jason couldn't help but notice the little girl standing beside her. She was no older than 6 or 7, with wide blue eyes that seemed to shine with innocence. She had dark hair, just like Elena's, and she was holding Elena's hand. At first glance, Jason thought nothing of it, but something in the way the little girl looked at him made his heart skip a beat. Was this Elena's daughter? He hadn't known Elena had a child. The thought made his mind race. As Elena approached, Jason greeted her with a stiff smile, unsure of what to say. He wanted to ask about the little girl, but he didn't want to seem rude or intrusive. Elena, on the other hand, looked just as unsure of how to react to him after all these years. "Jason," she said softly, her voice tinged with hesitation. "I wasn't sure you'd come." Jason nodded. "I wasn't sure, either," he replied. His gaze moved down to the little girl, who was now staring up at him with those bright blue eyes. "And this is—" Jason trailed off, struggling to find the right words. Elena's smile softened as she looked down at the little girl. "This is Mia," she said quietly. "My daughter." Jason's heart seemed to stop. Mia? The name echoed in his mind, but he couldn't quite understand what it meant. Could this little girl be his? The thought hit him like a freight train, and he had to blink a few times to clear the fog in his mind. He looked at Elena, his expression one of shock and confusion. Elena saw the look in his eyes, and before he could say anything, she spoke. "Jason," she began, her voice gentle but firm. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you. Mia is yours." Jason's stomach dropped. He could hardly breathe. He had a daughter? A daughter he never knew about? The realization hit him like a wave, and everything around him seemed to blur. Elena continued to speak, but Jason couldn't focus on her words. All he could think about was the little girl standing next to her, the child who might be the key to everything he had lost 7 years ago. Jason stood there, frozen in shock, as the weight of Elena's words settled in his mind. Mia was his daughter. His heart raced as he looked down at the little girl beside Elena, her innocent blue eyes staring up at him with a mix of curiosity and warmth. He had never imagined this moment, never thought he would find out he had a child he never knew about. His mind was spinning with questions, but one thing was clear: his life had just changed forever. Elena, seeing the confusion in his eyes, gave a soft sigh. "I know this is a lot to take in," she said gently, "but I've kept this from you because I didn't know how to tell you, and I didn't want to drag you back into a world that hurt you. But Mia deserves to know who her father is." Jason's breath hitched as he processed her words. 7 years. 7 years had passed since their world came crashing down, and now, standing before him, was the evidence of everything that had changed. He didn't know what to say. Part of him was angry that she had kept this from him, that he had missed out on so much of Mia's life. But another part of him, a part he hadn't expected to feel, was filled with a deep sense of longing. He looked at Mia again. The resemblance was undeniable. There was no mistaking it. This little girl was his daughter. The realization made his chest tighten. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jason finally managed to ask, his voice strained. Elena looked away for a moment, her gaze drifting toward the floor. "I didn't know how to. And when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't want to burden you with the responsibility. You were building your empire, and I didn't think you'd want anything to do with a child that wasn't planned." Jason shook his head, the words stinging. "I would have wanted to know," he said, the pain in his voice unmistakable. Elena's eyes softened as she looked up at him. "I know," she whispered. "And I'm sorry. I was just scared. But Mia needs you now, and I can't do this alone anymore." Jason took a deep breath, his mind racing. He couldn't deny the truth in her words. He had built an empire, but at what cost? He had pushed away everything personal, everything meaningful, in pursuit of success. And now, standing before him, was a child who was his responsibility. "What do you need from me?" Jason asked, his voice low. Elena hesitated for a moment, then reached out and placed her hand on his arm. "I need you to be a father to her," she said quietly. "Mia deserves to know who her father is, and I can't do this alone. I need your help, Jason." Jason stood still, processing the weight of her words. He had never expected his life to take this turn. A year ago, he would have dismissed the idea of being a father. But now, staring into the eyes of the little girl who was his flesh and blood, he knew he couldn't walk away. Mia deserved a chance, a father, and a life that wasn't defined by the mistakes of the past. He looked down at Mia, who was still standing quietly by Elena's side. She looked up at him with wide eyes, as if waiting for him to make a decision. Jason knelt down to her level, trying to steady his nerves. "Hi, Mia," he said softly, his voice trembling. "I'm your dad." Mia blinked, as if processing the words. Then, without warning, she reached out and hugged him. Jason's heart soared as he held her close. The little girl, the daughter he had never known, had just accepted him without hesitation. It was the first real connection he'd felt in years. As he pulled back, Mia smiled up at him, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Jason felt a spark of hope. "I'm glad you're here," she whispered, her voice so innocent and pure. Jason's eyes softened as he smiled down at her. "I'm glad I'm here too, Mia," he said, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Elena watched the scene unfold before her, a mix of emotions crossing her face. She had never imagined this moment would come, but now that it had, she couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Jason was here. He was ready to be a father, and that was all she had ever wanted for Mia. "We'll figure this out," Elena said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "Together." Jason nodded, his eyes never leaving Mia's face. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't walking away this time. He had a daughter now, and he would do whatever it took to be the father she needed. As the night went on, Jason, Elena, and Mia spent time together, the awkwardness slowly fading as they shared stories and laughed. It wasn't perfect, and there was still so much to figure out. But for the first time in years, Jason felt like he was on the right path. He had a family, and he wasn't going to let them go. As he looked at Elena, he saw something in her eyes that he hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild what they had lost. But for now, he was content with the knowledge that he had a second chance. A second chance at being a father, at being part of Mia's life, and at finding peace with the woman he had once loved. Jason had never expected to be here, standing in the same room with Elena after so many years, watching her interact with Mia, their daughter, the child he never knew he had. It was overwhelming, yet somehow calming at the same time. He could feel a weight lifting off his chest, but there was also a growing sense of responsibility that seemed to weigh him down even more. As the evening wore on, the initial awkwardness between him, Elena, and Mia faded into a comfortable silence. They shared a quiet dinner at the reception table, the gentle hum of the wedding party's conversations in the background. But Jason's mind kept drifting back to the same thought. He had a daughter. He was a father. He had to be a part of her life. After the meal, Jason offered to take a walk with Mia, a chance to talk to her, to get to know her better. Elena smiled softly at the suggestion and nodded. I think she'd like that, Elena said, her voice laced with gratitude. Jason stood up and offered his hand to Mia, who took it without hesitation. They stepped outside into the cool evening air, the stars twinkling above them, a stark contrast to the chaos inside. Mia skipped beside him, her small hand tucked in his, her energy infectious. You know, Jason said, glancing down at her, I've been thinking a lot lately. Mia looked up at him with wide eyes, her face innocent and full of curiosity. What about? She asked, her voice soft but full of wonder. Jason paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He wasn't sure how to explain everything that had happened, how much his world had shifted in the past few hours. Well, I've been thinking about how much I've missed. Missed what? She asked, tilting her head. Missed you, Jason said, his voice full of emotion. I didn't know about you until today, but now that I do, I'm not going to let you slip away again. Mia smiled, her eyes lighting up. I'm glad you're here, she said, her voice full of warmth. I'm glad you're my daddy. Jason's heart swelled at her words. It felt surreal, hearing those words from a little girl he had just met, but it was also the most genuine thing he had ever heard. They walked for a while, Jason asking her about her favorite things, her favorite color, her favorite book, her favorite food. Mia was eager to answer, her excitement contagious. Jason couldn't help but feel a connection to her, a bond that seemed to form almost instantly, despite the years of absence. He knew he had a long road ahead of him, but this was a start. They eventually made their way back to the reception, where Elena was waiting for them, a soft smile on her face as she watched them approach. Did you two have a good talk? Elena asked, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and concern. Yeah, Jason said, his voice steady but full of emotion. She's incredible, Elena. I can't believe I've missed so much of her life. Elena nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. I know, she said quietly. But she's here now. We can all move forward together. Jason took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. He had so many questions, so many things he needed to learn about Mia, about his role as her father, but for the first time in years, he felt like things might finally be falling into place. The next few days were a whirlwind. Jason spent every moment he could with Mia, trying to make up for the lost time. He took her to the park, watched her as she played, and listened to her stories. Every day, he found himself falling more and more in love with this little girl who had suddenly become the center of his world. Elena was still wary, cautious about letting Jason fully into their lives, but she could see the change in him. She saw the way he interacted with Mia, the way he was trying to be a father to her. And though it was hard for her to admit, she knew that Mia deserved to have a father in her life, whether she had planned it or not. One afternoon, Jason invited Elena to lunch, hoping to talk more openly about their future and what it might look like. They met at a quiet cafe, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Jason arrived early, waiting for her with a cup of coffee in front of him. When Elena walked in, she looked more relaxed than he had seen her in years, her shoulders less tense. She sat down across from him, offering a small smile. Thank you for this, she said, her voice soft. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this conversation. Jason nodded, taking a deep breath. I wasn't sure either, but we need to talk about what comes next. I don't want to be a part-time father. I want to be there for Mia, fully. And I want to be part of your life, too. Elena's eyes softened, and she looked away for a moment, gathering her thoughts. It's not going to be easy, Jason, she said quietly. We've both changed so much over the years, and there's a lot of hurt in our past. But I can't deny that Mia needs you. And I can't deny that maybe I need you too. Jason reached across the table, gently placing his hand over hers. We'll take it one day at a time, he said. But I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. Elena smiled, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. I'm glad to hear that, she whispered. Because we're going to need you. All of us. As they sat there, talking about their future, Jason realized something that surprised him. He had spent so much time chasing success, thinking that money and power would bring him happiness. But now, with Elena and Mia in his life again, he understood that true fulfillment came not from what you built, but from who you built it with. And for the first time in years, Jason felt like he was finally on the right path. He had a family again. And this time, he wasn't going to let them go. Jason stood at the threshold of his office, staring out over the city skyline. The lights of New York twinkled below, a constant reminder of the empire he had built. Yet, in the quiet of his office, with his hands resting on the glass railing, all he could think about was the new chapter in his life that had begun. The past week had been a whirlwind, filled with moments he never thought would happen. After years of focusing solely on business, after blocking out any form of personal connection, he had found himself thrust into the role of a father. It had been overwhelming, but it had also been exhilarating. Jason had been spending time with Mia every chance he could get. They had visited parks, taken walks in the city, and even spent an afternoon at a local ice cream shop. Every moment with her felt like a gift he never knew he was missing. She was smart, curious, and had a way of seeing the world that made everything feel fresh again. But as much as Jason had embraced his new role, there was still a lot to navigate. Elena was still cautious, still hesitant about fully letting him back into their lives. She had her reasons, of course. The pain from their past was still raw, and there was a part of her that wasn't sure if she could trust Jason again. Jason understood that, but it didn't make it any easier. He knew he had a lot to make up for, and he was determined to do whatever it took. One evening, after spending time with Mia, Jason and Elena found themselves alone in the living room of her apartment. The atmosphere was different now. It wasn't the tension of the past. There was an underlying sense of hope, but it was still fragile. They sat across from each other, a comfortable silence between them, until Elena spoke. Jason, I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, she said softly, her voice full of emotion. I know you're trying, I see it. But there's still so much hurt between us. I need to know, can you really be here for us? For Mia? Jason looked at her, his eyes filled with sincerity. Elena, I can't change the past, and I know I've made mistakes. But I promise you, I'm here now. I'm here for both of you, for Mia, and I'm not going anywhere. I know it's going to take time, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Elena's gaze softened, but there was still a part of her that held back. You say that, but what happens when things get hard? You've been gone for so long, Jason. Can I trust that you'll stay when it gets tough? Jason took a deep breath, trying to gather the right words. I won't walk away again, Elena. Not this time. You and Mia mean everything to me now. I've realized that all the success in the world means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. I want to be there for both of you, no matter what happens. Elena studied his face for a long moment, as if searching for the truth in his words. Finally, she nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I hope you mean that, she whispered. Because Mia deserves a father. And I deserve a chance to believe in you again. Jason reached out and took her hand, gently squeezing it. I won't let you down. I promise. As the evening went on, Jason felt a shift in the air between them. It wasn't a magical fix, but it was progress. They were talking, really talking, about their past, their mistakes, and their hopes for the future. For the first time in a long time, Jason felt like he was on the right path. The next few days were a mix of growing closer to Mia and navigating the delicate balance between him and Elena. Jason knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to fight for his family. He spent more time with Mia, slowly learning the things that made her smile, the things that made her laugh, and the things that made her sad. He wanted to be there for every part of her life, to be the father she deserved. One afternoon, while they were at the park, Mia ran ahead, her laughter echoing in the air. Jason watched her for a moment, his heart swelling with pride. It was moments like this that made everything worthwhile. As he turned to join her, he noticed Elena watching them from the bench, her eyes soft with emotion. She was watching him, watching the way he interacted with Mia, and for the first time, Jason saw something in her eyes that he hadn't seen before: hope. After the park, they all went to a nearby cafe for lunch. The three of them sat at a small table, Mia chatting excitedly about her day at school. Jason and Elena shared a quiet smile, and for the first time, there was no tension, no awkwardness. Just the feeling of being a family again. Jason knew there were still challenges ahead. There would be tough conversations, difficult decisions, and moments of doubt. But in that moment, as he looked across the table at Elena and Mia, he knew that he was ready. Ready to be the father Mia needed. Ready to rebuild what had been broken, and ready to face whatever the future held, as long as they were together. Elena caught his eye, and for the first time in a long time, she seemed to relax. She reached across the table, her hand finding his, and for the first time in years, Jason felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, with his family, and he wasn't going to let them go. Not again. The days that followed were filled with new routines, new beginnings, and new challenges. Jason was fully immersed in his new role as a father, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was truly living. Mia was everything he had imagined and more. She had this way of seeing the world that made every little moment feel like an adventure. Whether it was a trip to the zoo, an afternoon spent at the park, or simply reading stories before bed, Jason cherished each moment with her. But as much as he relished in this newfound role, there was still the matter of rebuilding the trust between him and Elena. The connection they had once shared was still there, but it was buried beneath years of hurt, betrayal, and silence. Jason knew that earning her trust wouldn't be easy, but he was committed to making it work. One evening, as the three of them sat together at dinner, Elena spoke up, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. "Jason," she began, her voice gentle but firm, "I know you've been trying. I can see the effort you're putting in with Mia, and I can see the man you've become. But I still have questions. I still have doubts. And I need to be honest with you." Jason looked at her, his heart sinking slightly. He had expected this conversation, but that didn't make it any easier. "I'm ready for whatever you need to say," he replied, his voice steady. Elena took a deep breath, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. "I need to know if this is real, Jason," she said softly. "I need to know if you're really here, not just for Mia, but for me. I need to know if we can have a future, or if this is just another chapter in your life that you're willing to leave behind once it gets hard." Jason's chest tightened as he processed her words. It hurt to hear, but he knew it was the truth. He had hurt her in the past, and now it was his responsibility to prove that he was worthy of her trust again. "Elena," he said softly, leaning forward, his eyes locked onto hers, "I know I've made mistakes, and I can't change the past, but what I can do is show you that I'm not the same man I was. I'm here, for both of you. I'm not going anywhere. This is real. What we have, what I feel for you, it's real. And I want to build a future with you. A real future, together." Elena's eyes softened, but there was still a hesitation in her gaze. "I want to believe that," she whispered, "but I need more than just words. I need time. Time to see that you're here for the long haul. Time to see that this isn't just some fleeting feeling for you." Jason nodded, understanding her hesitation. He knew that time was the only thing that would heal the wounds of the past. "I understand," he said, his voice low and earnest. "And I'm willing to give you all the time you need. But I'm not going anywhere." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of their conversation hung in the air, but it wasn't the heavy, suffocating kind of silence. It was the kind of silence that came from understanding, from both of them realizing that they had a long road ahead of them, but that they were both willing to take that journey together. After dinner, Jason walked Elena to the door, and as they stood there, the tension between them had dissipated. It wasn't gone completely, but there was a sense of peace that hadn't been there before. "I'll see you tomorrow," he asked, his voice quiet, almost tentative. Elena nodded, offering a small smile. "Yes," she said softly, "tomorrow." As Jason watched her walk down the hallway, his heart felt lighter than it had in years. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he was certain of one thing. He wasn't going to let go of the chance he had been given. The next few weeks passed in a blur of new routines, and small victories. Jason and Elena spent more time together, not just as co-parents, but as two people rediscovering each other. The awkwardness was still there at times, but it was slowly being replaced by something more comfortable, more familiar. Mia thrived with the attention of both her parents, and it was clear that having her father in her life was making all the difference. As for Jason, he was starting to see things differently. For the first time, he realized that his success didn't matter as much as the people around him. It was the love, the connection, the family that made life truly worthwhile. One afternoon, after spending the day with Mia, Jason and Elena sat down to talk. This time, there was no tension, no uncomfortable silence. It was just two people, sitting together, ready to move forward. Jason, Elena began, her voice steady. I've been thinking a lot about everything. And I think I'm ready to believe in us again. Jason's heart skipped a beat at her words. What do you mean? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena smiled softly, her eyes filled with a warmth he hadn't seen in a long time. I mean that I'm ready to take the next step. I'm ready to see where this can go, where we can go. I'm ready to build that future with you, Jason. If you're still willing to try. Jason's chest swelled with emotion as he reached out to take her hand. I'm more than willing, he said, his voice thick with sincerity. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. They sat in silence for a moment, just holding each other's gaze, as if the world around them had paused. And in that moment, Jason knew that they were on the right path. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Elena and Mia by his side, he was ready to face whatever came their way. Together, as the weeks went by, things slowly began to fall into place. Jason and Elena were learning to navigate the new dynamic of their relationship, not just as co-parents, but as two people who were slowly rediscovering the connection they once shared. The moments between them felt different now. There was no longer the bitterness, no longer the guarded walls that had once kept them apart. Instead, there was a sense of understanding and a shared commitment to making things work. The bond between Jason and Mia continued to grow stronger. Jason reveled in every moment he spent with her. He was amazed at how quickly she had accepted him, how effortlessly she had welcomed him into her life. She was a bright and curious child, always asking questions and constantly discovering the world around her. One Saturday afternoon, Jason took Mia to the local science museum. They spent hours exploring the exhibits, talking about everything from the stars in the sky to the dinosaurs that once roamed the earth. Mia was fascinated, her eyes wide with wonder as she absorbed everything she could. Jason couldn't help but smile, his heart full as he watched her enthusiasm. It was moments like these that reminded him of how much he had missed, how much he had taken for granted in his quest for success. After their visit to the museum, they stopped at a cafe for ice cream. Mia sat across from Jason, her face covered in chocolate smudges as she told him about her favorite exhibits. Dad, she said between bites of her sundae, I think I want to be a scientist when I grow up. Jason chuckled, wiping the ice cream from her cheek. A scientist, huh? That's a pretty big dream. Mia nodded seriously. Yeah, I want to learn about all the cool stuff in the world, like space and bugs and volcanoes. Jason's heart swelled with pride. He hadn't expected to hear something like that, but he was thrilled. Well, he said, you can be whatever you want to be, Mia. I'll support you no matter what. Mia beamed up at him, and Jason knew in that moment that he would do anything to help her achieve her dreams. As much as he had been focused on making his company a success, it was clear to him now that the real success in life was in moments like this, in being there for the people who mattered most. That evening, as Jason and Elena sat on the couch together, watching a movie with Mia curled up between them, he felt a sense of contentment he hadn't experienced in years. It was a quiet evening, the simple joy of being together filling the room. As the credits rolled, Jason turned to Elena, his voice soft. Thank you, he said quietly. Elena looked at him, her brow furrowed. For what? She asked. For giving me a chance, Jason said. For letting me be a part of this. I know I'm not perfect, and I know it's going to take time, but I want you to know I'm in this. For you and for Mia. Elena's eyes softened, and she nodded. I know you are, she said, her voice gentle. And I appreciate that. We're doing this together, Jason. One step at a time. Jason smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. He didn't have all the answers, and there were still many challenges ahead, but he felt more certain than ever that this was where he was meant to be. With Elena and Mia by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. As the weeks continued to pass, they settled into a routine. Jason was spending more time with both Elena and Mia, learning to balance his work with his newfound role as a father. It wasn't always easy, but he was committed. He had missed so much of Mia's early years, and he wasn't going to let any more time slip by. One evening, after dinner, Jason and Elena sat down at the kitchen table, the soft glow of the pendant lights above them casting a warm glow on their faces. "Jason," Elena began, her tone serious, "I think it's time we talk about what's next for us. For all of us." Jason looked up at her, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" he asked. Elena took a deep breath, her hands resting on the table. "I mean that we've been taking things slow, and that's been good. But I think we need to start thinking about the future. What happens next? What's our next step?" Jason nodded, his mind racing. He had been so focused on the present, on building a relationship with Mia and earning back Elena's trust, that he hadn't really thought about the future. But now, sitting across from Elena, he realized that this was the next step. "I want to be with you, Elena," he said, his voice steady. "I want to be part of your life, and I want to be the father Mia needs. If you're ready, I'm ready. I'm ready to take whatever step comes next." Elena looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing his words. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I'm ready too, Jason. I think we're finally ready to take the next step. Together." Jason felt a weight lift off his shoulders as he reached across the table to take her hand. This was it. This was the beginning of a new chapter for all of them. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, Jason knew that with Elena and Mia by his side, he could face anything. Together. The months passed, and life for Jason, Elena, and Mia started to feel like it was finally coming together. Jason had fully embraced his role as a father, and Mia had become his whole world. His relationship with Elena was growing stronger with each passing day, their connection deepening as they both worked through the challenges of their past. They spent their weekends together as a family, making memories that Jason knew would last a lifetime. One Saturday, Jason took Mia to her first soccer game. She had been begging him to sign her up for weeks, and despite his busy schedule, he didn't want to miss the chance to be there for her. The sun was shining, the air crisp, and the sound of excited chatter filled the field as kids ran around kicking the ball. Mia was eager, her face bright with excitement as she suited up in her team's jersey. "Dad, watch this," she shouted, running toward the field with all the energy of a child who was ready to take on the world. Jason smiled, sitting on the bleachers, his heart full. Watching Mia play brought a sense of joy he never imagined he could feel. He cheered her on, clapping and shouting her name as she made a perfect pass to her teammate. She grinned back at him, and for a moment, the world seemed perfect. After the game, Jason gave Mia a big hug, proud of how well she had played. "You were amazing out there, Mia," he said, lifting her up and spinning her around. "You were really good, Dad." Mia giggled, her face flushed with happiness. Elena, who had been watching from the sidelines, joined them as they walked toward the car. "She definitely takes after you," Elena said with a smile. Jason chuckled. "I don't know about that, but I'm proud of her." As they drove home, the three of them talked about the game and what Mia wanted to do next. The conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in a long time, Jason felt like he had everything he had ever wanted. They had found their rhythm, and it felt right. That evening, after Mia had gone to bed, Jason and Elena sat on the couch together, the quiet hum of the television filling the room. There was a peacefulness between them now, a calm that had been hard to come by in the past. Jason turned to Elena, his expression serious but soft. "I've been thinking," he began, "about everything we've been through, about how much we've grown and how much I've changed. I just want you to know how grateful I am for you, for giving me the chance to be here, for Mia, for us." Elena looked at him, her eyes softening. "I'm grateful too, Jason," she said quietly. "I've seen the change in you, and it's been amazing to watch. I think we're finally in a place where we can move forward, together." Jason reached out and took her hand, holding it gently. "I want to be a better man, Elena, for you and for Mia. I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm not going to let go of what we have now. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that I'm here for the long haul." Elena squeezed his hand, her smile warm. "I know, Jason. I know." The following weeks were filled with more family moments. weekend outings, evenings at home, and quiet dinners together. Jason made it a priority to be there for every milestone in Mia's life, whether it was cheering her on at a soccer game, helping her with school projects, or just being there to listen when she had something on her mind. The more time he spent with her, the more he realized how much he had missed in those early years. And with each passing day, he became more determined to never let another moment slip by. One afternoon, Elena and Jason sat down together at the kitchen table, the soft light from the windows casting a warm glow on the room. Elena looked at him, her face thoughtful. "Jason," she began, "I've been thinking about the future. About what comes next for us." Jason's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice full of hope and concern. Elena took a deep breath, her eyes meeting his. "I mean that I think we're ready for the next step. For us, for Mia, for our family." Jason felt a rush of emotion as he processed her words. "You mean, like moving in together?" Elena nodded. "Yes, I think it's time. I think we're ready for that." Jason smiled, his heart swelling with happiness. "I would love that," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I want us to be a family. I want to be there every day, for both of you." Elena smiled back at him, her eyes sparkling with hope. "I think we're finally ready, Jason. And I'm so glad you're here." Jason felt a weight lift off his shoulders as they sat there together, planning their next steps. The road ahead wouldn't be without its challenges, but for the first time in a long time, he felt confident in what the future held. He had his family now, his daughter, his love, his future, and he wasn't going to let anything come between them. As the days passed, Jason and Elena began making plans for their future. They talked about moving into a new house together, one that would be big enough for all three of them, a place where they could build their lives and make new memories. It wasn't going to be easy, but they were ready for it. Together, one evening, after they had finalized their plans, Jason looked at Elena, his heart full. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to face it with you," he said. Elena smiled, leaning into him. "And I want to face it with you, Jason. Together, we can handle anything." And in that moment, Jason realized that everything he had been through, everything he had fought for, had led him to this point. He had a family now, and no matter what came next, he was ready to face it all with them by his side. The weeks that followed were filled with new beginnings, new challenges, and a deeper connection between Jason, Elena, and Mia. Jason had spent his entire life focused on building an empire, but now he was focused on something far more important, his family. The decision to move in together marked a new chapter for all of them, a chapter filled with hope, love, and the promise of a future they would build together. As they started looking for a new home, Jason and Elena made it clear to Mia that this was a fresh start for all of them. Mia was excited, but there was also a sense of nervousness in her eyes. She had never experienced this before, and even though she loved having both of her parents together, it was still a big change for her. One evening, as they sat in their small apartment, surrounded by boxes and the chaos of their impending move, Mia spoke up. "Dad," she said softly, her voice hesitant, "will it always be like this? You and Mom together?" Jason looked at Elena, who was packing up some books. They both knew what Mia was asking, and it was a question that had been lingering in their minds too. Jason took a deep breath, sitting down next to Mia on the couch. "Mia," he began, his voice gentle. "Sometimes life takes us on unexpected paths. Your mom and I have been through a lot, but we're here now. We're a family, and this time, we're not going anywhere." Mia looked up at him, her big eyes filled with curiosity. "So, you're staying for good?" she asked. Jason smiled and nodded. "Yes, Mia. I'm staying for good. This time, I'm not going anywhere." Elena, who had been watching them from across the room, walked over and knelt beside Mia. "We're a family, sweetheart. And we're going to make sure we're always here for you, no matter what," Elena said, her voice filled with emotion. Mia smiled, her face lighting up with relief. "I'm glad," she whispered. As they continued to pack up their old apartment, Jason couldn't help but reflect on how much his life had changed in such a short period of time. There had been a time when he thought success was everything, that wealth and power were the only things that mattered. But now, with Mia and Elena by his side, he realized that true success was found in the love and connections you build with those closest to you. Moving day arrived faster than Jason had expected. It was a day filled with excitement, but also a tinge of nervousness. As they drove to their new home, Jason couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The house was everything they had dreamed of, a cozy, beautiful place where they could start fresh. It wasn't a mansion or anything extravagant, but it was perfect for the family they had become. Jason watched as Mia ran up the front steps, her laughter echoing through the air. Elena stood beside him, a smile on her face as she watched their daughter. "I can't believe this is happening," Elena said softly, her voice filled with wonder. "We're really doing this." Jason reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "We're doing this together, Elena. This is just the beginning." They spent the rest of the day unpacking and settling in, and by evening, their new home began to feel like a real home. Mia was already making her room her own, proudly hanging up her favorite posters, while Jason and Elena worked together to make the rest of the house feel warm and inviting. That night, as they sat down for their first dinner in their new home, Jason felt a deep sense of contentment. They were a family now. They had been through their struggles, their doubts, and their fears, but they had made it through. And now, they were ready to face whatever the future had in store. As they finished their meal, Elena turned to Jason, her eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "You know, Jason," she said softly, "we've come a long way. I never thought we'd get here, but we did. And I'm so proud of us. Proud of how far we've come, and proud of what we're building together." Jason smiled, his heart full. "I'm proud of us too, Elena. And I'm more grateful than I could ever express. You and Mia, you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. I've learned so much from you both." Elena reached across the table, her hand finding his. "We're just getting started, Jason. There's so much more ahead of us." Jason nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had made plenty of mistakes in the past, but he had learned from them. And now, he was ready to build something new, something lasting. Together, the next few weeks were filled with the joy of settling into their new home. Jason spent more time with Mia, helping her with her homework, playing games with her, and simply being present in her life. He had missed so much, but he was determined not to miss another moment. As for Elena, their relationship grew stronger every day. They communicated more openly, shared their hopes and fears, and faced the challenges of parenthood together. It wasn't always easy, but Jason knew that with Elena and Mia by his side, they could face anything. One night, as they were getting ready for bed, Elena turned to Jason, her eyes thoughtful. "Do you ever think about the future?" she asked quietly. Jason looked at her, his heart racing slightly. "All the time," he replied. "And I think about how lucky I am to have you and Mia in my life. I want to be the best husband and father I can be. I want to build a future with both of you." Elena smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "We're already building it, Jason. One day at a time." As Jason lay in bed that night, he couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. His life had been complicated, messy, and filled with mistakes. But now, surrounded by the love of his family, he knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. The future was uncertain, but with Elena and Mia by his side, he was ready to face it, together. The days turned into weeks, and the reality of their new life together started to feel more and more like a dream come true. Jason, Elena, and Mia were settling into their new home, finding comfort in the rhythm of daily life. Jason had always been driven by success, his business, his wealth, his career, but now, for the first time, he understood what true fulfillment felt like. It was the laughter of his daughter as she raced through the backyard, the quiet moments spent with Elena in the evenings, and the warmth of a family that had come together after years of turmoil. But while things were steadily improving, life was never without its challenges. There were still moments of doubt, lingering questions about the future, and the inevitable bumps along the way. One afternoon, while Jason was working from home in his office, he received an unexpected call from his lawyer. "Jason," the lawyer began, "I've just received some news. It's regarding your late father's estate." Jason's heart skipped a beat. It had been years since he had thought about his father's passing, but the mention of his estate instantly brought back a flood of memories. His father had been a complicated figure in his life, distant, strict, and often absent. Growing up, Jason had always tried to prove himself to his father, to earn his approval. Now, with his father gone, there was nothing left but the remnants of a complicated legacy. "What's going on?" Jason asked, trying to mask the unease in his voice. "I need you to come in. It's important." Jason agreed to meet his lawyer the next day, But as the conversation ended, a sense of dread settled over him. He had spent so many years building his own path, trying to separate himself from his father's shadow. He didn't want anything to disrupt the life he had worked so hard to create with Elena and Mia. The next day, he drove to his lawyer's office, trying to shake the uneasy feeling that had been growing in his chest. As he entered the office, he was greeted by his lawyer, who led him to a small conference room. "We've uncovered something in your father's will," the lawyer said, opening a folder and handing it to Jason. Jason glanced at the papers in front of him, his eyes scanning the legal jargon until something caught his attention. "It seems that your father left behind a significant amount of money and assets, more than we initially realized. But there's a catch. According to this clause, you have to meet certain conditions to inherit the full estate." Jason's brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean? What conditions?" The lawyer looked at him with a solemn expression. "It says here that in order to claim the inheritance, you need to prove that you've built a family of your own, that you've established emotional connections and personal responsibility. Essentially, your father's will is asking you to demonstrate that you've moved beyond your career and that you're capable of sustaining a meaningful personal life." Jason couldn't believe what he was hearing. It felt like a cruel joke. His father had always been distant, so why would he now be dictating such personal conditions? "This is ridiculous," Jason muttered, his frustration rising. "I've worked my whole life to get here, and now he wants me to prove something like this?" The lawyer sighed, clearly sympathetic but bound by the terms of the will. "I know this is unexpected, Jason, but this is the stipulation. You'll need to demonstrate that you've built a life outside of work, that you've created a meaningful family dynamic. And only then will you be eligible for the inheritance." Jason leaned back in his chair, feeling the weight of the situation. His mind raced, the pressure mounting. He had spent so much of his life proving himself professionally, but now he was being asked to prove something far more personal. It was as if his father was trying to force him to confront the very things he had avoided for years: family, love, connection. As he left the lawyer's office, Jason's thoughts were a whirlwind. What did this mean for his future? He had built a life with Elena and Mia, but did that count? Was it enough? Could he prove to his father that he had moved beyond his career, that he was a man who could balance both family and success? The more Jason thought about it, the more he realized that his father's legacy wasn't just about money. It was about the emotional connection he had never fostered. It was about a life that had been focused on achievement but lacked the depth of true relationships. Jason knew what he had to do. He needed to prove to himself and to the world that he had built something that was worth inheriting, something that was bigger than any business success or financial gain. He needed to show that he had built a real, meaningful life with Elena and Mia. That night, as Jason sat down with Elena and Mia to talk, he knew that this was the moment to share everything. He couldn't carry this burden alone. "Elena," he began, his voice heavy with emotion, "there's something I need to tell you. It's about my father's will. He left behind an inheritance, but there are conditions. To claim it, I need to prove that I've built a meaningful family life, that I'm capable of balancing both success and personal responsibility." Elena listened intently, her expression softening as she understood the weight of what he was saying. "Jason, you've already proven that. You've built a life with us. You've shown me and Mia that you're here for the long haul. You don't need to prove anything to anyone." Jason looked at her, grateful for her support, but feeling the pressure of his father's stipulation. "I know, Elena, but I need to show my father's estate that what we have is real. I need to prove that I'm not just about work and money, that I've built a life worth inheriting." Elena reached out and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "We'll do this together," she said, her voice full of determination. "We'll prove to him that the life we've built is everything he could have wanted for you." Jason smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle in his chest. No matter what happened with the inheritance, he knew he had something far more valuable: his family, his love for Elena and Mia. And that, he realized, was the true legacy he was building. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them. With them by his side. As Jason and Elena sat together, the weight of the conversation hung in the air. Jason had shared with her the details of his father's will, the conditions for receiving the inheritance. It was a moment of vulnerability for him, exposing the parts of his past he had spent so long trying to forget. But Elena, as always, was there to support him. Jason, Elena said, her voice steady and full of love. You've already proven what matters. You've built a life with us. A real family. That's the legacy you should be proud of. Jason squeezed her hand, grateful for her unwavering support. Still, the nagging doubt lingered in the back of his mind. Was it enough? Could he truly prove to his father's estate that he had changed, that he had built a meaningful life outside of work? He needed to find a way to show that everything he had worked for, his family, his love for Elena and Mia, was enough. Over the next few weeks, Jason threw himself into making their home the best it could be. They worked together, putting the final touches on their new house, creating spaces that felt warm and full of love. Mia's room was decorated with bright colors, and her favorite books lined the shelves. Jason and Elena took turns planning family dinners and weekend outings. The house felt like home. Still, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that he was being judged, that his worth was being tested. Every time he interacted with Elena and Mia, he felt the weight of the expectations his father had placed on him. It wasn't just about the money. It was about proving that he could create the family life his father never did. One Saturday morning, Jason took Mia to the park, hoping to clear his mind. They spent hours playing catch, talking about Mia's plans for the future, and laughing together. It was a simple day, but it was exactly what he needed. Watching Mia smile as she ran around, Jason realized that this was the life he had always wanted, a life filled with love, connection, and meaning. When they returned home, Elena was preparing dinner. The aroma of roasted vegetables filled the kitchen, and Mia was helping her set the table. Jason stood in the doorway, watching them, his heart full. Elena looked over her shoulder and smiled. "How was the park?" she asked, her voice light. "Perfect," Jason replied. "Mia's a natural athlete. She's going to be great." Mia beamed at the compliment. As they sat down to dinner that evening, Jason felt something shift within him. He had spent so much time chasing success, striving for approval, that he had forgotten what truly mattered. What mattered was the family they were building together. What mattered was the love they shared, the trust they had in one another, and the bond they were creating. Elena reached across the table, her hand brushing against his. "I've been thinking about something," she said softly, her voice full of thoughtfulness. "About us. About our future." Jason looked at her, his heart racing with anticipation. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Elena began, pausing as if choosing her words carefully. "I think we're ready to take the next step. I think we're ready to start making long-term plans. Together. As a family." Jason felt his chest tighten with emotion. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life," he said, his voice thick with sincerity. "I want to build something with you. With Mia. Something real, something lasting." Elena smiled, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "We've already started building it, Jason. We're doing it right now." As the days passed, Jason's confidence grew. He continued to spend more time with Mia, helping her with schoolwork, attending parent-teacher conferences, and showing her the support she needed. He also made sure to spend time with Elena, making her feel valued and loved, just as he had promised. Slowly but surely, the doubts he had been carrying faded. He began to see that the life he had built with Elena and Mia was not something he needed to prove to anyone. It was real, and it was his. One evening, after Mia had gone to bed, Jason and Elena sat together on the couch. The soft glow of the table lamp illuminated the room, creating a warm, intimate atmosphere. Jason turned to Elena, his expression serious but filled with love. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice steady, "about everything we've been through. And I just want you to know that I'm here for the long haul. No matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere." Elena smiled, her hand resting on his. "I know, Jason. And I'm here with you. We've made it through so much already, and we're going to keep moving forward. Together." Jason felt a sense of peace wash over him. It was as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He had spent so much of his life worrying about what he needed to prove, whether it was to his father, his colleagues, or even himself. But now, he realized that the only thing that mattered was the family he had created. Mia, Elena, and the life they shared. That was the legacy he had built. The following days were filled with more moments of joy. Jason and Elena made plans for the future, discussing everything from vacations to long-term goals. They talked about their dreams for Mia and how they could help her achieve them. Jason found himself looking forward to every day, knowing that he had a family to share it with. There were still challenges ahead, of course. There would always be obstacles in life, but Jason knew that with Elena and Mia by his side, they could face anything. As they continued to build their life together, Jason understood something important. Real success wasn't measured in wealth or status. It was measured in love, trust, and the bonds you form with the people who matter most. And in that moment, as he sat with Elena and Mia, Jason knew that he had everything he needed. They were a family, and that was all that mattered. The days continued to unfold in a peaceful rhythm, the kind of routine Jason had longed for but never fully embraced until now. The home they had built together felt more and more like a true sanctuary, a place where laughter echoed off the walls and love seemed to fill every corner. Mia had settled in perfectly, thriving in the environment Jason and Elena had created for her. School projects, playdates, and weekend adventures became the new normal, and Jason couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude every time he watched her grow. But just as things were beginning to feel stable, Jason received a call that would shake the foundation of everything they had worked for. It was from his lawyer, the same one who had delivered the news about his father's will. "Jason," the lawyer began, his tone serious, "I have some important updates regarding your father's estate. It's time-sensitive, and I need you to come in." Jason's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected to hear from his lawyer again so soon, especially after everything they had already gone through. He knew the inheritance was tied to proving something to his father's estate, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something new, and perhaps troubling, was on the horizon. Jason agreed to meet the lawyer the following day, feeling a sense of dread settle in his chest. When the day came, he arrived at the office, his mind racing with possibilities. His lawyer greeted him with a somber expression and led him into the same conference room where they had spoken before. "What's going on?" Jason asked, anxiety rising in his chest. The lawyer handed him a set of documents, the pages thick with legal language. "Jason, after going through some additional paperwork, it seems there's a clause in your father's will that we missed before. It's more complicated than we initially thought. The estate is in jeopardy of being taken by another beneficiary unless certain conditions are met." Jason's brow furrowed. "What does that mean? What conditions?" "The stipulations are stricter than we anticipated. To inherit the estate in full, you have to prove something more than just your family life. It's about your commitment to both business and personal relationships. You need to show that you've created something lasting in both areas, something that honors your father's legacy." Jason felt a cold chill run down his spine. It felt as though his father was still pulling the strings, even from beyond the grave, testing him in ways he hadn't anticipated. "You've got to be kidding me," Jason muttered, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I've built a family. What more does he want?" The lawyer looked at him, a hint of empathy in his eyes. "I know this isn't easy, Jason, but the conditions are clear. You have to demonstrate that your family, your work, and your commitments all align in a meaningful way. Only then will the estate be fully transferred to you. Otherwise, the inheritance will be divided among other beneficiaries who've stepped forward, including distant relatives you've never met." Jason felt the weight of those words press down on him. He had fought so hard to prove his worth in business, and now it seemed his father was asking for even more. He had to show that he could balance his personal life, his family, and his career in a way that made his father's vision of success complete. The thought was overwhelming. He wasn't just proving that he was a good father. He was being asked to prove that he could combine the business empire his father had built with the life he had created with Elena and Mia. As Jason left the lawyer's office, his mind spun with the complexity of the situation. He knew he had a family who loved him, but was it enough to satisfy the conditions set by his father's will? He couldn't allow everything they had worked for to fall apart because of this final test. Over the next few days, Jason spent hours reflecting on what his father had wanted, what he had tried to achieve in his own life, and how he could combine those elements with the family he had built with Elena and Mia. He knew this wasn't just about the inheritance. It was about proving that the man he had become, the man who could balance love and responsibility, was worthy of everything he had gained. Jason shared his concerns with Elena one evening after Mia had gone to bed. As they sat on the couch, he explained the new conditions in his father's will and how they were threatening everything they had built. "Elena," he began, his voice heavy with emotion, "I don't know what to do. My father is asking me to prove something I'm not sure I can." Elena took his hand, squeezing it gently. "Jason," she said softly. You've already proven everything that matters. You've shown Mia, and you've shown me, that you can build a life worth living. You're not just building a business or an empire. You're building a family. That's what counts. Jason looked into her eyes, grateful for her unwavering support. But what if it's not enough? He asked, his voice filled with doubt. What if I'm not able to meet his expectations? Elena smiled gently, brushing a strand of hair from his face. Jason, you don't need to meet anyone else's expectations. You've already built something real, something lasting. What you have with Mia and me, that's everything your father could have wanted. It's not about the inheritance. It's about the life you've created. Jason's heart swelled with a mixture of gratitude and relief. Elena was right. He didn't need to prove anything to his father. The love and life he had with Elena and Mia were proof enough. He didn't need a legacy from the past. He was creating his own legacy, one built on love, responsibility, and family. Over the next few weeks, Jason focused on what mattered most, his family. He spent more time with Mia, helping her with school projects and cheering her on at soccer games. He supported Elena in everything she did, and together, they continued to build their future. They decided to put the inheritance behind them, knowing that what they had was far more valuable than any amount of money. Jason learned that real success wasn't about proving himself to anyone. It was about living the life that mattered most, with the people he loved. And as he watched Elena and Mia laugh together one afternoon, Jason knew that he had found what he had been searching for all along, a life that was truly worth living. The following months were filled with a sense of calm and determination. Jason, Elena, and Mia had settled into a rhythm that felt natural and right. Jason was no longer chasing success for the sake of proving something to the world. Instead, he was focused on the most important thing in his life, his family. The days were filled with small, meaningful moments that made him realize what true success really meant. As the seasons changed, Jason found himself more and more at peace with the life he was building. They continued to make their house a home, with each room reflecting the love and care they had for each other. They had filled their days with laughter, love, and togetherness. Jason often spent evenings at the kitchen table with Elena, planning their future and discussing their dreams for Mia. They had already begun making plans for a family vacation, something they had all been looking forward to. But despite the peacefulness of their daily life, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unsettled within him. He had come to terms with the inheritance and his father's conditions, but the legacy of his father still loomed over him. Even though he had built a new life, he couldn't help but wonder if he had truly moved beyond the shadow of the man who had always been distant and cold. One evening, as Jason sat on the back porch, watching the sunset with a cup of coffee in hand, Elena joined him. She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. You've been quiet lately, she said softly. What's on your mind? Jason sighed, setting his cup down. I've been thinking about my father, about the legacy he left behind. Elena looked at him, her expression softening. I thought we had moved past that, she said gently. Jason shook his head. I know. I have moved on in so many ways. But there's still a part of me that feels like I'm trying to prove something. Not to anyone else, but to him. To the person he wanted me to be. Elena reached for his hand, her fingers gently brushing against his. You've already proven everything you need to prove, Jason. You're not the man your father wanted you to be. You're the man you were always meant to be. The man who loves and cares for his family. The man who has created something real. Jason turned to her, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. But is it enough? Is what I have now enough? Elena smiled softly, her eyes filled with understanding. Yes, Jason. It's more than enough. You have built a life that's full of love, of purpose. That's all anyone could ever ask for. Jason felt a sense of relief wash over him. For so long, he had been haunted by the expectations of a man he could never please. But now, with Elena and Mia by his side, he realized that his father's approval no longer mattered. What mattered was the life he had created with the people who truly mattered. Over the next few days, Jason spent more time reflecting on his father's legacy. He had been so focused on proving his worth to the man who had never truly seen him, that he had forgotten to see the incredible life he had built for himself. With Elena and Mia, he had created something far more meaningful than any inheritance or financial success could ever provide. Jason decided that he no longer needed to chase approval. He had already won the greatest prize, his family. He spent more time with Mia, teaching her how to ride her bike, helping her with school projects, and watching her grow into the confident, happy child she had become. Each moment he spent with her felt like a gift. As for Elena, their relationship continued to grow deeper. They had their struggles, their disagreements, but they always came back to each other, stronger and more connected than before. One afternoon, as they sat on the couch together, Jason turned to Elena, his heart full of gratitude. "I know I haven't said it enough," he began, his voice soft, "but thank you. For everything. For being here with me, for being the woman you are, and for giving me the chance to be part of this family." Elena smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "You don't have to thank me, Jason. We're building something together, and I'm just as committed to it as you are." Jason reached for her hand, his fingers gently wrapping around hers. "I never thought I'd find something so real, something so meaningful," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I found it with you and Mia. I'm more than I ever thought I could be because of you too." Elena leaned in, kissing him softly on the cheek. "We found it together, Jason, and we're going to keep building it. Every single day." That evening, Jason stood by the window in their living room, watching the world outside. The city was bustling, but in his own home, there was a sense of peace he had never known. He was surrounded by the people he loved, people who loved him in return. He realized then that the life he had created with Elena and Mia was everything he had ever needed. No inheritance, no approval from the past could compare to the love and the life he had built. The next morning, Jason woke up early, determined to make the most of the day. As he sat down to breakfast with Elena and Mia, he knew that his journey was just beginning. He had found everything he had been searching for, and now it was time to focus on the future they would build together. With the support of his family, Jason was ready to face whatever came next. He no longer felt the pressure of living up to his father's legacy. Instead, he had created his own legacy, one built on love, commitment, and the family he had always dreamed of. And for the first time in his life, Jason was truly at peace. As the days turned into months, Jason felt more secure in the life he was building with Elena and Mia. The challenges that had once seemed insurmountable now felt like distant memories, and every morning when he woke up next to Elena, every evening when he shared dinner with Mia, he knew deep down that he had found exactly what he had been looking for. His business was thriving, but it no longer consumed him the way it once had. Instead, his true focus was the family they had built together, and he had never felt more fulfilled. One afternoon, as Jason worked in his home office, he received an unexpected call from his lawyer again. The voice on the other end was steady but had a hint of urgency to it. "Jason, I need to speak with you. It's about your father's estate," the lawyer said. Jason's heart sank. After everything they had been through with the inheritance, he hadn't expected to hear from the lawyer again. "What's going on?" he asked, the unease in his voice palpable. "It's complicated," the lawyer replied. "There's a new development that you need to be aware of." Jason's mind raced as he agreed to meet with the lawyer the following day. He spent the rest of the evening reflecting on everything he had worked so hard to build, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of dread creeping in. Had he truly overcome his father's expectations, or was something more still looming on the horizon? The next day, Jason drove to his lawyer's office with a heavy heart. He had come so far, and he didn't want to face any more roadblocks. As he sat in the lawyer's office, the tension in the air was thick. The lawyer handed him a set of documents, and Jason's eyes scanned the papers, trying to make sense of the words. "Jason," the lawyer began, "there's a stipulation in your father's will that has come into play. It seems that the estate is still under scrutiny. You have to make a final decision about whether you want to accept the inheritance under these new conditions." Jason frowned. "What new conditions?" "It's about your business," the lawyer continued. "In order for you to fully inherit the estate, you need to prove that your business has evolved. Your father's will specifies that you must ensure the company remains sustainable and impactful, not just in terms of profits, but in the community as well." Jason leaned back in his chair, stunned by the new demand. It felt like his father was continuing to control his life from beyond the grave, imposing new conditions at every turn. "I've done everything he asked," Jason said, his frustration mounting. "I've built a family. I've made changes. I've moved beyond my career. What more does he want from me?" The lawyer paused, his face serious. It's not just about the family anymore, Jason. It's about your legacy, your impact. Your father wanted to ensure that his name would be remembered for generations, but he also wanted to make sure you used the inheritance to create something lasting, something meaningful. You have to show that your company is not just about profits, but about making a difference in the world. Jason's mind whirled as the weight of the lawyer's words settled in. His father's legacy, once a source of resentment, now felt like an inescapable chain. Could he live up to these new expectations? Could he prove to his father, even posthumously, that he was worthy of the inheritance? As he left the lawyer's office, Jason's thoughts were clouded with uncertainty. His business had always been important to him, but it had never been about making a lasting impact on the world. His focus had been on success, on building something that would stand the test of time. But now, it felt as though his father's shadow was hovering over him once again, demanding more than Jason had ever thought possible. Jason knew he couldn't ignore the lawyer's words. He had worked hard to prove himself in every area of his life except this one, his business. What good was all the wealth, all the success, if it didn't have a deeper meaning? He needed to make changes, and fast. That evening, Jason sat down with Elena to discuss the situation. As usual, she listened intently, her gaze calm and understanding. "It sounds like your father still wants something from you," Elena said gently. "But Jason, you've already proven yourself. You've built a life full of love, you've built a family. You're not just a businessman. You're a father, a partner, and someone who's committed to making the world a better place." Jason nodded, but he still felt uncertain. "I'm not sure it's enough," he said, his voice thick with frustration. "I've built this business, but it's always been about profits. Now I need to make it something more. I need to prove that it's about making a difference." Elena reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "You've already shown that, Jason. You've built a business that's allowed us to have the life we do. And that's more than enough. The world doesn't need more money, Jason. It needs people who care. People who are willing to make a change." Jason looked at her, her words sinking in. He had spent so much time trying to prove his worth through business. But perhaps the real test wasn't about the money or the legacy his father wanted. It was about the difference he could make, not just for himself, but for others. "I'm going to make the change," Jason said, his voice filled with conviction. "I'm going to make the business a force for good. I don't need my father's approval anymore. What I have with you and Mia, that's my legacy." Elena smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "And that's the legacy that matters most, Jason." The next few weeks were filled with meetings, brainstorming sessions, and a new sense of purpose. Jason set out to change the direction of his business, focusing not just on profits, but on how it could contribute to the community. He began implementing new initiatives, creating partnerships with local organizations, and making sure that his company had a lasting, positive impact. As Jason worked toward this new vision, he felt more fulfilled than ever before. It was no longer about proving something to his father. It was about creating something real, something that mattered. And as he looked at Elena and Mia, he knew that he had already built the most important thing, a family. Together, they would face whatever came next, knowing that they had already created a legacy of love, commitment, and purpose. The transformation in Jason's life was nothing short of profound. The changes he had made to his business, shifting its focus to community and purpose rather than pure profits, had brought a newfound sense of fulfillment. He was no longer just a businessman, driven by the weight of his father's legacy. He had found a new path, one that felt aligned with who he had become, a man committed to his family, his values, and making a difference in the world. As he worked on this new vision, Jason found himself closer than ever to Elena and Mia. They had all embraced the changes in their lives, and the bond between them had deepened in ways Jason had never thought possible. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Jason returned home to find Mia and Elena sitting together on the couch, laughing over a board game. The sight of them, so content and full of joy, made Jason's heart swell with pride. "What's going on here?" Jason asked, a playful grin on his face. Mia looked up, her face lighting up with a smile. "We're having a board game night. You should join us, Dad." Jason smiled warmly. "I think I might just do that." He sat down beside them, and for the first time in a long time, he truly felt at peace. They spent the rest of the evening playing games, telling stories, and simply enjoying each other's company. It was moments like these that made Jason realize that he had already built the most important legacy of all, a loving, supportive family. As the weeks passed, Jason's business continued to grow, but he was no longer driven by the desire for wealth. His focus had shifted to creating a workplace culture that valued collaboration, kindness, and community. He encouraged his employees to get involved in local projects, supported charitable causes, and ensured that the company gave back to the community that had supported it. For the first time in his life, Jason felt as though he was living with a purpose beyond his own success. He had found a way to combine his love for business with his desire to make a positive impact on the world. One afternoon, Elena and Jason sat together on their back porch, watching Mia run around in the yard. Jason turned to Elena, his voice soft but filled with conviction. "I've never felt more at peace than I do right now. I've spent so many years chasing things that didn't matter. But now, with you and Mia, I finally understand what it's all about." Elena smiled, her eyes warm with affection. "I'm glad you're seeing that, Jason. We've been through so much, but we've come out stronger because of it. This family, this life we've built, it's everything." Jason took a deep breath, feeling a sense of gratitude that he hadn't known he was capable of. "I know," he said. "I never knew how much I needed this until now. I spent so much time trying to prove myself, but now I realize I don't need to prove anything. I already have everything I need right here." Elena squeezed his hand, her eyes meeting his. "And I have everything I need with you. We're in this together, Jason." As they sat in the peaceful quiet of their backyard, Jason knew that everything had changed. He had spent so many years running from his past, trying to live up to the expectations of a father he could never satisfy. But now, he had built a life that was full of love, meaning, and purpose. And he had done it on his own terms. He no longer needed the approval of anyone, not even his father. The love and happiness he had with Elena and Mia were more than enough. The following weeks were a time of continued growth for Jason, both personally and professionally. His business was thriving in new ways, but it was his family life that truly fulfilled him. He spent more time with Elena, taking long walks in the evenings, discussing their plans for the future, and simply enjoying their time together. As for Mia, Jason found himself becoming more and more involved in her life. He attended every school event, cheered her on at her soccer games, and helped her with her homework. The more he was present, the more he realized that he had missed so much, but it was never too late to be there now. One day, as Jason picked Mia up from school, she ran up to him, her face beaming with excitement. "Dad, guess what? I got an award at school today." Jason's heart swelled with pride as he hugged her tightly. "That's amazing, Mia. I'm so proud of you." Mia grinned. "I knew you'd be proud." Jason couldn't help but think about how far they had come. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the future he was building with his family. He had everything he had ever wanted, and more. The past seemed so distant now, and the future was full of endless possibilities. As the years passed, Jason and Elena continued to nurture their relationship, and Mia continued to grow into a kind, confident young woman. Jason had never been more grateful for the life they had built together. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, Jason looked at Elena, his heart full. "I can't believe how far we've come," he said. "When I look at all of us, I can't help but feel that this is everything I've ever needed." Elena smiled, her eyes sparkling with love. "We've done this together, Jason. We're a team, and there's nothing we can't do." Jason smiled back, his heart full of contentment. "You're right. We are a team, and this is just the beginning." They clinked their glasses together, toasting to the life they had built and the future they were going to create. Together, Jason stood in the living room, watching Mia and Elena laugh together as they prepared for their upcoming family trip. The trip was something they had planned for months, a week-long getaway to a cabin in the mountains. It was the kind of break they all needed, a chance to relax, bond, and enjoy the simple pleasures of being together. Jason couldn't help but smile as he observed them, his heart full of contentment. This was the life he had fought for, the life that, only a few years ago, seemed impossible. It wasn't just about the business or the wealth anymore. It was about being present for the people who mattered most. The last few months had brought so much peace to Jason's life. He had transformed his business, turned it into a force for good, and had worked hard to create a meaningful impact in his community. But most importantly, he had become the father and husband he had always wanted to be. His relationship with Mia had grown stronger, and every day he found new ways to be there for her, to guide her as she navigated her teenage years. As for Elena, their bond had only deepened. They had weathered the storm of their past, and now they were building a future together. Jason had come to realize that he didn't need to chase approval from anyone anymore, not his father, not his business associates. He had already built a legacy far more valuable than any inheritance could offer. One morning, as they packed the car for the trip, Jason paused for a moment, taking in the scene around him. Elena was organizing the bags, making sure everything was in place, while Mia excitedly chatted about all the things she wanted to do once they got to the cabin. Jason felt a surge of gratitude. The life he had once dreamed of now felt like his reality, and it was more than he could have hoped for. "Are we ready to go?" Jason asked, his voice full of excitement. Elena looked up, smiling. "Just about. Mia's got her list of activities ready." Jason chuckled. "I think I'm going to need a vacation just to keep up with her." Mia turned to him, her eyes bright with excitement. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll make sure you have fun too." As they drove through the scenic countryside, the familiar tension that once hung over Jason's life seemed to dissipate. The road stretched ahead, and for the first time in a long time, he felt completely at ease. They arrived at the cabin late in the afternoon, the sun beginning to set behind the mountains. The air was crisp and fresh, and the setting felt like something out of a postcard. Mia immediately ran inside, eager to explore, while Jason and Elena took a moment to themselves. They stood on the porch, looking out over the vast landscape. The view was breathtaking, the golden light of the setting sun casting a warm glow over everything. "This is perfect," Jason said softly, his voice filled with appreciation. Elena leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder. "It is. I think we needed this." Jason nodded, his heart full. "I've spent so many years chasing things that didn't matter. But now, I see what really matters. Being here with you and Mia, that's everything." Elena smiled, looking up at him. "We're exactly where we're meant to be, Jason. Together." They spent the next few days hiking, cooking meals together, and enjoying the peacefulness of the cabin. Jason found himself more relaxed than he had ever been. It was as if the weight of the world had been lifted off his shoulders. For the first time, he could fully appreciate the life he had built, without the constant pressure of proving himself. One afternoon, as they sat by the fire pit outside, Jason turned to Elena. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice serious, "about everything we've been through, about what we've built. I never imagined I would find peace like this. I spent so many years lost in the chase for something that I thought mattered. But what I have with you and Mia, it's everything." Elena took his hand, squeezing it gently. "You've always had it, Jason. You just had to let go of what you thought you needed. This, us, is what really matters." Jason looked at Mia, who was playing with a stick by the fire, her laughter filling the air. "I know," he said softly. "This is the life I was always meant to have, and I'm never going to take it for granted." As the days passed, Jason and Elena talked more about their future, about the things they still wanted to accomplish together, both personally and professionally. They made plans to continue growing their business in a way that aligned with their values. Jason knew that he was in the right place, with the right people. And for the first time in a long time, he felt secure in the decisions he had made. By the end of the trip, as they packed up to head home, Jason felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This trip had given him everything he needed: time with his family, a chance to reconnect with himself, and a reminder of the love that had always been at the heart of everything he had done. As they drove back, Jason looked at Elena and Mia, a smile spreading across his face. He had everything he had ever wanted. He was no longer the man he had been, chasing approval, striving for more. He had found his purpose, and it wasn't in wealth or legacy. It was in the love of his family. "I can't wait to see what's next for us," Jason said, his voice full of optimism. Elena nodded, her eyes sparkling. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Jason smiled, knowing that whatever the future held, they would be ready. Together. After their peaceful getaway, Jason, Elena, and Mia returned home with renewed energy and a deeper sense of connection. The trip had been a reminder of what truly mattered in their lives: love, family, and the simple moments that brought them joy. As they settled back into their routine, Jason couldn't help but reflect on the changes he had made over the past few years. He had come so far, not just in his business, but in his personal life as well. The shift from being a man focused on proving himself to one focused on building something meaningful had transformed him. Yet, despite the growth, Jason knew that life had a way of throwing curveballs. He couldn't rest on his laurels, and there was always work to be done. The following week, Jason attended a meeting with his team to discuss the future of the company. They had made significant strides in transforming the business into a force for good, but there was still more to be done. Jason listened intently as his team presented new ideas for community outreach programs and partnerships. He was proud of what they had accomplished, but he also knew that it wasn't enough. The true success of the business was not just in its financial growth. It was in how it made a positive impact on the world. As the meeting ended, Jason felt a renewed sense of purpose. The changes he had made in the company were only the beginning. There was still work to be done, and he was ready to take the next step. But when he arrived home later that evening, he realized that there was something else weighing on his mind. Mia had been distant that afternoon, not her usual bubbly self. Jason found her in her room, sitting on the floor, staring out the window. He knocked softly on the door before entering. "Hey, Mia," he said, sitting beside her. "Is everything okay?" Mia looked at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't know, Dad," she replied softly. "I just feel like I don't really fit in at school. Everyone seems to have their own thing, and I don't know where I belong." Jason's heart ached as he listened to her. He could see the confusion and doubt in her eyes, and it brought back memories of his own struggles growing up, trying to find his place in the world. "I get it, Mia," Jason said, his voice gentle. "I've been there too. It's tough when you feel like you don't quite fit in. But I want you to know that you don't have to fit into anyone else's mold. You're unique, and that's what makes you special." Mia looked up at him, her expression softening slightly. "But what if I'm just different? What if I'm not like everyone else?" Jason smiled, reaching over to brush a lock of hair behind her ear. "Mia, being different is a gift. The world needs people who think differently, who see things in a new way. And that's exactly who you are. You're smart, kind, and strong, and you don't have to change to fit anyone else's expectations." Mia's eyes started to brighten, but the doubt was still there. "But what if I don't know what I want yet? What if I'm still figuring it out?" "That's perfectly okay," Jason reassured her. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. Life is about discovering who you are and what makes you happy. It's a journey, and you're still on it. I'll be here with you, every step of the way." Mia gave him a small smile. "Thanks, Dad. I think I just needed to hear that." Jason hugged her tightly, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. As much as he had focused on his own transformation, he now realized that being a parent meant being there for Mia through her own struggles. It wasn't just about guiding her. It was about listening and being present, helping her find her own path. Later that evening, Jason and Elena sat together in the living room, reflecting on the conversation with Mia. Elena looked at Jason, her eyes filled with understanding. "She's going through a lot," Elena said softly. "It's not easy for her, but I can see that you're exactly what she needs." Jason nodded, the weight of fatherhood heavy on his shoulders, but also incredibly rewarding. "I just want her to feel like she belongs. I don't want her to feel like I did when I was her age, like I was always searching for something I couldn't find." Elena reached for his hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "You're doing everything right, Jason. You're being there for her, and that's what matters." Jason smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle within him. The world had always been about competition, success, and proving himself. But now, it was about something entirely different. It was about being there for the people he loved, guiding them, supporting them, and building a future that wasn't just about success. It was about love, trust, and family. As the days went on, Jason continued to balance his work with his commitment to his family. He and Elena made more time for each other, taking quiet walks in the evenings, discussing their future plans, and simply enjoying the present. Jason found a new rhythm in his life, one that allowed him to pour his energy into both his business and his loved ones. And as for Mia, she slowly began to open up more, finding her own way and feeling more confident in who she was. One afternoon, while Jason was at work, he received a message from Mia. It simply read, "I think I've figured out what I want to do." Jason's heart swelled with pride, and he couldn't wait to hear more. When he got home later that evening, Mia was sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes shining. "Dad," she said, her voice full of excitement. I want to start a community project. I want to help other kids who feel like I did, like they don't fit in. I want to give them a place to belong. Jason's heart swelled with pride. That's incredible, Mia. You're going to do amazing things. As they talked more about the project, Jason realized that Mia had found her own path, just as he had. It wasn't about fitting into anyone else's mold. It was about carving her own space in the world, just as he had done with his business and his family. Watching her take this step, Jason knew that they were both on the right track. Together, they were building a future that was truly theirs, a future full of love, purpose, and the kind of success that couldn't be measured by money or status. It was measured by the lives they touched and the people they helped along the way. As the weeks passed, Mia's community project began to take shape. Jason couldn't have been more proud of his daughter. The idea had come to her one evening during their trip to the mountains, as they sat around the fire pit, talking about what mattered to her. Mia had always been a compassionate child, but now, she was channeling that compassion into action. She wanted to create a safe space for kids who felt like they didn't belong, a place where they could connect with others who shared similar experiences. Elena was equally supportive of Mia's idea, and they both helped her take the first steps toward making it a reality. The first thing Mia did was create a flyer. Jason remembered how her eyes lit up when she asked him to help with the design. It was simple, yet it captured everything she wanted to say. A place for kids who need to find their place. Join us every Saturday for games, talks, and fun. Mia set up a meeting at the local community center, and soon enough, they had gathered a small group of kids who felt the same way she did. It was a start, and Mia was determined to make it grow. Jason couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as he watched her work. He had been so focused on his own transformation that he hadn't fully realized how much Mia was growing into a strong, independent young woman. One Saturday afternoon, as Jason and Elena arrived at the community center, they were greeted by Mia, who was full of excitement. "Dad, Mom, look. We have 10 kids here today. They're all excited to get started." Jason smiled, his heart swelling with pride. He couldn't believe how quickly Mia had taken charge of her vision. The space was filled with laughter as the kids played games, shared stories, and started to form connections with one another. Jason could see how happy Mia was, seeing her vision come to life before her eyes. Elena stood beside him, her hand gently resting on his. "I think this is exactly what she needed," Elena said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "It's not just about helping others. It's about finding her own voice." Jason nodded, his heart full. "She's incredible. I never expected her to have this much impact, so quickly. I'm just amazed." They spent the afternoon at the center, watching as Mia took the lead in organizing different activities and helping the kids feel included. It was clear that Mia had found her purpose, just as Jason had found his. The sense of fulfillment that came from helping others was something Jason now understood more deeply. As the weeks continued, the project grew. More kids joined, and Mia's leadership skills blossomed. She started to organize field trips, community events, and workshops to help the kids develop new skills. Jason, along with Elena, offered whatever support they could, attending events, volunteering their time, and helping Mia brainstorm new ideas. It was a family effort. One day, after a particularly successful community event, Jason and Mia sat down together in the living room, reflecting on how far the project had come. "Dad," Mia said, her voice full of excitement, "I think we should expand this. We could start doing this in other neighborhoods too. I want to reach as many kids as possible." Jason looked at his daughter, his heart swelling with pride. "You're right, Mia. This is just the beginning. You've created something that matters, and it's making a difference. I think you can take it as far as you want to." Mia smiled, her eyes bright with determination. "I'm going to make it happen, Dad. I just know it." As time went on, Jason became even more involved in the project, working with Mia to expand the reach of the program. They partnered with local schools, businesses, and other community organizations to raise awareness and gather support. The project continued to grow, and Jason saw firsthand the impact it was having on the kids. Mia had found her calling, and in doing so, she had changed the lives of so many others, including her own. But it wasn't just Mia's project that was evolving. It was Jason and Elena's family too. They were all growing together, learning from each other, and continuing to support one another in ways they never had before. One evening, as the family sat down for dinner, Jason felt a sense of deep contentment. It was moments like these that made everything worthwhile. The sound of Mia's laughter, Elena's gentle smile, and the warmth of their home. "I can't believe how much has changed," Jason said softly, looking at his family. "A few years ago, I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted or what really mattered. But now, I have everything I need right here." Elena reached across the table, placing her hand on his. "We have everything because we've built it together, and it's only going to get better from here." Jason nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. He didn't need anything more than this. The love of his family and the joy that came from living a life filled with purpose. As he looked at Mia, he saw a future full of endless possibilities, a future that was bright and full of hope. She was no longer the uncertain child who had struggled to find her place. She had found her voice, and it was stronger than ever. And Jason knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. They had already proven that they were capable of overcoming anything, as long as they had each other. Jason smiled, his heart full, knowing that he had built something that would last, a legacy not of money or material success, but of love, kindness, and the difference they had made in the world. Together, as the months passed, the community project Mia had started continued to grow and thrive. The initiative had blossomed from a small group of kids at the local community center to a network that spanned several neighborhoods. More and more young people were drawn to the program, finding solace and belonging in the space that Mia had created. Jason couldn't be prouder of his daughter. It was one thing to see her succeed academically or athletically, but seeing her lead a project that made such a tangible impact on others filled him with a sense of pride he couldn't fully describe. Mia was becoming the kind of young woman who inspired those around her, and Jason knew that she was just getting started. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, Jason could see the change in Mia. She was more confident, more sure of herself. There was a glow in her that hadn't been there before, a quiet strength that came from knowing she was making a difference. "Dad, we're planning a big event for the community," Mia said, her voice filled with excitement. "It's going to be a fundraiser for the kids' program, and I want to invite some local businesses to help sponsor it. I think we can raise a lot of money to keep the program going." Jason smiled, impressed with her initiative. "That's an amazing idea, Mia. You've really taken charge of this. I'm so proud of you." Mia beamed at him. "Thanks, Dad. I've been working on it for weeks, and I think it's going to be a huge success." The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. Mia worked tirelessly, reaching out to local businesses, organizing volunteers, and making sure everything was in place for the event. Jason and Elena were right by her side, helping in any way they could. They attended meetings, printed flyers, and supported Mia's vision every step of the way. It wasn't just about the fundraiser. It was about showing the community what they could achieve when they came together. The night of the event arrived, and the community center was buzzing with energy. The room was filled with people from all walks of life: parents, teachers, business owners, and, of course, the kids who had benefited from the program. There was laughter, music, and a sense of unity that made Jason's heart swell with pride. As Mia took the stage to give her speech, Jason could see the nervousness in her eyes. She had never spoken in front of a crowd this large before, but she stood tall, a microphone in hand, and began to speak. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Mia said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "This program started with just a few kids who needed a place to belong, and now it's grown into something bigger than I ever imagined. We've created a space where everyone is welcome, no matter who they are or where they come from. And tonight, we're here to make sure that this program can keep going, so we can keep helping kids like us." Jason watched from the sidelines, amazed by his daughter's poise. She had come so far from the uncertain girl she had once been. The project had given her a sense of purpose and direction, and now, she was inspiring others to join her mission. When the night ended, Mia had not only raised a significant amount of money for the program, but she had also sparked a movement in her community. The event was a resounding success, and Mia received an outpouring of support from everyone who attended. Jason, Elena, and Mia stood together at the end of the night, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. "I can't believe it, Dad," Mia said, her eyes wide with disbelief. "We did it." Jason pulled her into a hug, overwhelmed with pride. "You did it, Mia. You brought all of this to life. I couldn't be prouder." Elena smiled, her eyes filled with emotion. You're both incredible. I'm so proud of you, Mia. Over the next few months, the success of the fundraiser allowed the program to expand even further. More kids joined, and new opportunities opened up for Mia and the other participants. Jason continued to balance his business with his commitment to his family, but he found that his work was now more fulfilling than ever. The changes he had made in his company had created a culture of collaboration and impact, and the success of the program only strengthened his belief that purpose was the key to real success. One evening, as Jason sat with Elena, reflecting on the events of the past few months, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. I never could have imagined this, he said, his voice full of emotion. When I first started this journey, I was so focused on success and proving myself. But now, I see that real success is in the relationships we build, the lives we touch, and the love we share. Elena reached out and took his hand, her eyes filled with love. You've always had it in you, Jason. You just had to realize it. And now, look at what you've built. Not just a business, but a life full of meaning and purpose. Jason smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle within him. He had spent so many years searching for something outside of himself, but now he realized that the answers had always been within reach. The family he had built with Elena and Mia was the true legacy he would leave behind. They were a team, and together, they had created something that would last far beyond anything he could have imagined. As the years went by, Jason continued to watch Mia grow into an even more remarkable young woman. Her community project continued to flourish, and she went on to become a leader in her own right, inspiring others with her passion and determination. Jason and Elena remained by her side, supporting her every step of the way, just as they had done from the beginning. In the end, Jason knew that the success he had always sought had been found in the moments of love, growth, and connection he shared with his family. He had learned that true fulfillment came not from accolades or wealth, but from the meaningful relationships we nurture and the positive impact we have on the world around us. And with Elena and Mia by his side, he knew that he had everything he needed. Together, they had created a life worth living, one built on love, purpose, and the unwavering support of family. As the seasons changed, so did the growth of the community project that Mia had started. What began as a small, heartfelt initiative had evolved into a full-fledged movement, gaining traction in nearby neighborhoods and spreading to other parts of the city. Mia's vision was now being realized on a scale she hadn't anticipated, and Jason couldn't help but be in awe of how far she had come. It wasn't just about the success of the program anymore. It was about the ripple effect it had created in the community. Families were coming together, kids were building lasting friendships, and people were rediscovering the power of supporting one another. Jason and Elena continued to be her biggest supporters, not only helping with logistics, but also being there to celebrate every milestone. They watched as Mia took on new challenges, her leadership skills developing every day. There were ups and downs, of course, and some days were harder than others, but Mia never backed down from her commitment. One evening, after a particularly successful event that saw a huge turnout, Jason and Mia sat on the porch, reflecting on the journey. The evening air was cool, and the sky was painted with soft hues of pink and orange as the sun set behind the trees. "Dad," Mia said, her voice filled with emotion, "I never imagined this would get so big. It feels like a dream, like I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to do." Jason smiled, pride swelling in his chest. "You've always known what you wanted, Mia. You just needed the courage to go after it. And look at what you've built. Something real, something that's making a difference." Mia looked out at the horizon, her expression thoughtful. "I used to feel so lost, like I didn't belong. But now, I see that all those struggles were part of the process. They helped me understand what I really care about. And now, I'm able to help others who feel the same way." Jason nodded, his heart full. "That's exactly it. You've turned your own challenges into something that helps others. You've made a space where kids who feel the same way you did can find their place." Mia turned to him, a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "I couldn't have done any of this without you and Mom. You've always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Jason reached over, squeezing her hand. "We believe in you, Mia. You're stronger than you think, and we'll always be here to support you." The next few months were filled with even more growth for the program. Mia expanded her outreach, forming new partnerships with local businesses and schools to help fund the initiative and provide resources for the kids involved. Jason saw the impact it had on Mia. She was growing into a young woman who not only had a vision, but also the drive and the ability to make it happen. One weekend, as they worked together to organize another event, Jason took a moment to reflect on how much had changed. He thought back to the time when he was driven solely by ambition and the need to prove himself. Back then, he would have never imagined that the most fulfilling part of his life would come from supporting his daughter in her mission to help others. As the project grew, Jason found himself increasingly involved, but not just as a father supporting his daughter. He became deeply passionate about the mission itself. He began speaking at local events, sharing his story about the transformation he had gone through and how it had influenced his perspective on business, family, and community. Elena, too, became more involved, supporting Mia and working alongside Jason to help bring more people into the fold. Together, they worked to ensure that Mia's program not only reached more kids, but also provided real, lasting opportunities for them to grow and thrive. They saw firsthand the profound impact the program had on the children who participated. One day, Jason had an idea. He suggested to Mia that they turn their experiences into a mentorship program, pairing older kids with younger ones who were still struggling to find their place. The idea was to create a continuous support system, where kids could not only receive guidance, but also give back by mentoring others. Mia loved the idea. "It's perfect, Dad. It's a way for kids who've been through this to help those who are going through the same thing." The mentorship program quickly became a hit, providing a new layer of depth to Mia's initiative. Jason watched as the kids who had once been shy and unsure of themselves grew into confident mentors, guiding younger kids and showing them the same kindness and understanding they had received. It was one of the proudest moments of Jason's life to see the full circle of growth and transformation. As the program gained more recognition, Jason and Elena sat down one evening to talk about the future. "Mia's doing incredible things," Elena said, her voice filled with pride. "I think we're all doing incredible things. This project has changed all of us, not just Mia." Jason smiled. "I couldn't agree more. It's given me a new sense of purpose. It's helped me realize that success isn't about how much you achieve. It's about the impact you make along the way." Elena nodded. "It's about the connections we build, the lives we touch, and the legacy we leave behind. And that's what we're doing together." The next phase of the program was set in motion, with the mentorship program growing even stronger and new partnerships being formed every week. Jason knew that Mia had only just begun to realize her potential. Her future was bright, filled with endless possibilities. But more than that, the future of their family was also bright. Jason had found something far more valuable than business success. He had found purpose, fulfillment, and the kind of legacy that would last for generations. As he looked at Elena and Mia, he realized that this was the real meaning of success. Not wealth, not status, but love, community, and the ability to make the world a better place, one person at a time. With his family by his side, Jason knew that the journey they had started together was only just beginning. As the years passed, the impact of Mia's community project only grew stronger. What had begun as a simple idea to help kids who felt like they didn't belong had now transformed into a powerful force that was changing lives in ways no one could have predicted. The mentorship program Jason had suggested had become a cornerstone of the initiative, with dozens of young people stepping up to mentor the next generation. The kids who had once felt isolated were now taking charge, becoming leaders in their own right. It was a beautiful cycle of growth, and Jason couldn't be more proud of his daughter. Mia had found not only her passion, but also her voice. As she grew older, her confidence continued to blossom, and she began to look beyond the community center, thinking about how she could scale her project to other cities, reaching even more children who needed a place to belong. One afternoon, Mia came to Jason and Elena with exciting news. She had been invited to speak at a national youth leadership conference, a platform where young people who were making a difference were given the opportunity to share their stories. It was a huge honor, and Mia was both excited and nervous. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Mia confessed as she sat down with her parents. "What if I mess up or say the wrong thing?" Jason smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Mia, you've been speaking to kids for years now. You've been leading with your heart, and that's what matters most. Just speak from that place, and you'll be fine. Elena nodded in agreement. We believe in you. You have something important to share, and you're going to inspire so many people. Mia's nerves slowly melted away as her parents' support sank in. She knew that she didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to be herself. And so, the day of the conference arrived. Mia stood at the podium in front of a packed auditorium, her hands gripping the edges of the microphone as she took a deep breath. The spotlight felt bright, but she quickly reminded herself that this moment wasn't about her. It was about the kids who were still searching for a place to belong, the ones who needed to hear that it was okay to be different. Hello, Mia began, her voice steady despite the nerves that still lingered in her stomach. I'm Mia, and I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. When I started my community project, I was just like you, feeling out of place, unsure of where I fit in. But what I've learned is that it's okay to be different. In fact, it's what makes you special. My project is all about helping kids find their place in the world, and I want to help you do the same. As she spoke, Mia's confidence grew. The room was silent, captivated by her words. Jason sat in the audience with Elena, both of them in awe of the young woman Mia had become. She was no longer the uncertain girl they had once known. She had found her purpose, and now she was sharing it with the world. By the time Mia finished her speech, the crowd erupted into applause. Jason couldn't hold back his tears. He had seen Mia grow from a shy child into a confident leader, and he knew that this was just the beginning of her journey. As the applause died down, Mia stepped off the stage, her heart racing with excitement. She ran into the arms of Jason and Elena, who were waiting for her backstage. You were amazing, sweetheart, Elena said, hugging her tightly. Jason smiled, his voice thick with emotion. I'm so proud of you, Mia. You've done something incredible here. You're going to change the world. The next few months were filled with more milestones for Mia and the project. Her speech at the conference had caught the attention of national media, and soon enough, offers of partnerships and sponsorships came pouring in. She was invited to speak at other events, and the project continued to grow in ways she had never imagined. Jason continued to support her every step of the way, but it was clear to him that Mia was no longer just his daughter. She was becoming a leader in her own right, someone who could inspire change on a much larger scale. As for Jason, he had finally come to understand that success wasn't about money, status, or accolades. It was about the lives you touched and the positive impact you made in the world. He had built a life he could be proud of, not because of the business he had built, but because of the family he had nurtured and the difference they were making together. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Jason looked around the table at Elena, Mia, and their home, which had become a sanctuary of love, laughter, and growth. I don't know how we got here, Jason said softly, his voice filled with gratitude, but I'm so thankful for all of it. I've learned more about what really matters in the last few years than I ever could have imagined. And it's all because of you too. Elena smiled, reaching across the table to take his hand. We've learned a lot from you too, Jason. You've shown us what it means to be true to ourselves, to live with purpose, and to give back to others. We're a family, and we're doing this together. Mia looked up at them both, her eyes filled with love. I couldn't have done any of this without you guys. You've always been there for me, and I'll never forget that. Jason smiled, feeling his heart swell with pride. We're always going to be here for you, Mia. Whatever you do, wherever you go, we're in this together. The family sat in silence for a moment, taking in the love that surrounded them. Jason knew that this was the greatest success of all, building a life based on love, support, and purpose. And with Elena and Mia by his side, he knew they could face anything the future held. They had already created a legacy far more meaningful than anything money could buy, a legacy of love, kindness, and the desire to make the world a better place. Together, ignite your curiosity with these captivating millionaire stories that showcase the power of transformation and perseverance. Follow the inspiring journey of a man who built an empire from the ground up, only to realize that true success lies in love, family, and making a difference. These millionaire stories explore the personal growth and challenges faced by Jason, a successful businessman who transitions from a life focused on wealth to one dedicated to giving back and building a legacy that matters. As Jason's story unfolds, he learns valuable lessons about the importance of community, mentorship, and finding purpose beyond material success. This collection of millionaire stories reveals how one man's journey of self-discovery not only impacts his life, but also the lives of those around him, including his daughter Mia, who is inspired to start a community project that makes a real difference. As their story progresses, Mia's initiative grows into something much larger than she ever imagined, touching the lives of countless young people and showing how even small acts of kindness can create ripples of change. These millionaire stories highlight the incredible growth of a family as they support each other's dreams, face challenges together, and ultimately build a legacy of love and community. Through perseverance, hard work, and the support of his family, Jason discovers that the real wealth in life comes from relationships and the impact you have on others. This collection of millionaire stories is a powerful reminder that success is not just measured by the money you accumulate, but by the lives you touch along the way. These millionaire stories will inspire you to look at success through a new lens and to find meaning and fulfillment in the connections you build, the people you help, and the love you share.